you can still have fun. You can have a wonderful college year without excessive drinking. So I think it's not just a UVA problem, it's all college problem. Students, are encouraged to drink. As an addiction management specialist, it really saddens me because I see a lot of students who come seeking help.
It's certainly a fallacy to think that every single person who's drinking or using on a college campus is doing so in a way that implies they need treatment. Certainly, many college students can use substances relatively safely, but a significant percentage can't. And that's sort of the focus of what we're trying to build collegiate recovery around, so that those students get the help they need and can thrive in the college environment.
There's this saying of feeling uncomfortable in our own skin. And there isn't a time as a kid that I don't remember feeling that.
So I drank. I drank a lot. And it runs in my family. So I look at addiction and alcoholism is hereditary. I think there is a genetic predisposition, but I also think that environmentally, just, trauma growing up.
I mean, I will never forget the way that I felt when the alcohol hit my blood.
I felt, that euphoria you feel that takes you out of that place of worrying and feeling about all the things that you don't want to feel.
And I know that this is not the same story for every alcoholic, but I do think that I was an alcoholic from that very first drink. Very quickly, alcohol went from being a part of my life to being the center of my life. There just wasn't turning back.
I would buy alcohol, all the time. And I had the privacy to drink alone, to drink as much as I wanted. You don't have anyone saying, hey, it's 8 a.m, you're drunk. College definitely made it worse. I think of how much I spent on alcohol weekly when I was in college, and it's very expensive. I think the fact that all my friends were doing it, and I was in an environment where there were probably a number of students just like myself that were alcoholics. We would drink every night. We would party every night. It's like a lie because you feel normal. Mm-hmm. But it's just the substance.
Individuals want to blend in and be like others, right? College is about being independent and having fun. And having fun is going to parties and doing all these fun things that all involve drinking. So you don't want to be singled out as the one who doesn't drink.
So I came home and was visiting for Thanksgiving. And I ended up going to a restaurant that I used to work at when I was in high school. But I ended up getting a couple of drinks there. And I was in my mom's car. And I remember getting off on the exit to get on 81. And there was a cop that was on the side of the road with another car. And the next thing I knew, I had the cop behind me and pulled me over. And told me to get out of the car. And gave me a sobriety test that I utterly failed. I went to jail that night and they found the fake ID going through my wallet. So I had legal charges, had to go to court. And when your parents pick you up out of jail on Thanksgiving Day, it kind of sucks. And I remember trying to sign the papers in handcuffs and I couldn't, and my parents watching me. And I just broke down crying. But I didn't stop there.
And of course, I loved the fact that UVA has the motto, the unofficial mascot of the Wahoo, which of course is famous for being a fish that drinks 3 times its weight. Also the work hard, play hard motto, which was perfect for me. The alcohol was plentiful, and I took advantage of that. There were nights where I did not know how I got home. I was really lucky. This brings us up to fall break of my first year at UVA. So I came home and I saw my friends, and we had decided to go to a bar in Georgetown. And I had this fake ID, but it was real sketchy. I remember when we got to the bouncer, they let us in, and all my friends and I started drinking. And then the bouncer comes up to us, our group, and was like, "Hey, I just want you to know, like I let you in, but I knew your IDs were fake. And now there's an undercover cop here. So you should beware, like probably don't drink." But guess what? There was no thinking. My 6 friends went to go dance, and I went back to the bar. And shockingly, I was arrested. I mean, it was just so ugly. And actually, I almost wish that I was blacked out for that night, but unfortunately, I remember every moment of that. I was so nasty and vitriolic that they shackled me to a chair, which they were 100% right to arrest me.
I just wasn't ready to stop until I checked myself into one of the psych wards near where I live, because my sponsor told me to go, because previous night I'd been really drunk, and I was like really depressed, and I was like watching YouTube videos about how to tie a noose, you know, to hang myself. So I checked myself in on a Thursday night. I had to spend the whole weekend on the psych ward, and couldn't leave.
I was in my dorm room with the mono on a Tuesday night, and my friend called me and was like, "Hey, you want to go to the fraternities?" And I remember saying, like, "No, I can't do that. I have mono." I remember the nurse told me that when you have mono, you should not drink and you should not exercise. And he was like, "Are you sure?" I remember thinking in my head, wait a second. She told me that I can't drink while exercising. And if I go to the fraternities, then I have to walk all the way across campus. But if we just party in the dorm, that'll be fine. So I invited my friend over. We brought a ton of alcohol into Eccles. And that night, the RAs busted us. And everybody else was totally fine with that. But I shut the door. And I remember feeling like this outside persona that I had created that was this really good student who had everything right on paper, you know, had just been arrested, had just had mono, and now was getting busted in the dorm. And I just felt like I couldn't go on anymore, and I didn't want to go on anymore. And I called my poor friend. I just told her I just wanted to die. And the RA was outside and could hear me. And I feel so grateful to him, even though at that moment I hated him and I thought he was making my life absolute hell. And he called the police, and the police came and took me to a mental hospital by force.
When I was there in the psych ward, like thinking of how many times I'd been to treatment, I realized that my life is cyclical, and that if I continue to drink and I continue to do the same thing, I'm going to keep ending up in the same place over and over and over again. So when I left that psych ward, which was about 6 years ago, that was the last time I drank.
They say for alcoholics, there's 3 places we end up: jail, mental institutions, or death. And I was 18, a first year at UVA, and had ended up spending time in both jail and in a mental hospital by force. I was not allowed to leave for 3 days. Then my stepmom came down to see me, and she was sitting across from me with tears in her eyes. And she said, "How can you not think that you have a problem with alcohol?" In my head, it was just college behavior. I was going to tell her I was not an alcoholic. But instead, out of my mouth came, "Maybe I have a problem." I really don't know where that came from. I don't know where that change of thinking came. But they say sometimes all you need is a crack in the door. And hearing it out of my mouth, that was the crack in the door I needed. And I talked to my dad. And my dad said to me, "If you think you have a problem with alcohol and you're willing to take suggestions, I know where you can find a new life." And he sent me to a 12-step program. Of course, I had a lot of trouble with UVA because I was a threat to myself. And the dean was like, "I'm going to give you a lifeline. I'm going to allow you to take a medical withdrawal. If you don't take this medical withdrawal, we will go through disciplinary actions to have you expelled." And I remember being like, "You can't force me to leave. Like, I'm not going to take that medical withdrawal." And my dad was like, "You're taking that medical withdrawal."
We believe that good people don't become addicts. There are tons of people who, through no fault of their own, become addicted. because when we engage with the types of substances that have such a high propensity to cause addiction, and we see the way in which we try to hide the emotions that are causing so much pain in us, it's no surprise that we turn to things like alcohol and substances. And so there's a big way in which, for me, when I think about college campuses, I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to help with education and to help with putting people into a position where they feel comfortable talking about the struggles that they have, whether it be with mental health or specifically with addiction.
You need to do a lot of work to get sober and stay sober. But basically, if you can stay sober, and this is an amazing thing, you can actually live an incredible life. I started going to a 12-step program where there were a lot of people who I didn't relate to their stories. Actually, there was this woman who talked about the emptiness, and she wasn't anymore. That was the thing that was amazing. She was happy and joyous and free and sober. And I was like, I want that.
I started drinking at 17. I'm 41 now. I've been sober for 6 years. So it took me a long time. It's absolutely possible. But you have to be around people and part of a community that is in going the same direction that you're at.
It's not always about finding the perfect resource. It's about finding a place where you can feel comfortable. A great example of this can be found with our collegiate recovery program, which is located in our student health and wellness building. Another example can be found through CAPS in the form of mental health support, which can also be a wonderful way to begin the process of opening the door to help someone to say, hey, I want to begin a conversation about my relationship with substance use.
I went back to UVA and I had a meeting with that same dean. And I told him that I had been working through this 12-step program and I had been serious about wanting to get sober. And he stopped being the disciplinarian and started being the support. And he said, if you stay sober and you keep doing what you're doing, I will do everything that I can to help you to be in a position for success. I was also really worried about going back into the dorm and I had to tell my roommate to remove the alcohol. But the thing that was amazing was that it was no thing. I was just like, hey, can you move the alcohol? And she was like, sure. And she moved into her friend next door.
CAPS was really huge in actually leading me to the collegiate recovery program. I was seeing Mark Silvestri, and he said, have you tried the collegiate recovery program? Reach out to Jen Hall. And then Wednesday night, 6 p.m., I showed up to my first meeting, and it led me here. I'd never thought my life would get this good with the friends that I have, just for showing up that one time Wednesday at 6 p.m.
I remember thinking, how am I going to make it through the turn of the millennium sober? How am I going to make it through my 21st birthday sober? And I remember sitting and I was alone in the dorm room being like, okay, I guess this is my new life. And on the window, tap, tap, and I look out the window, and below the window of Dabney, which was the dorm I went back to, was a whole bunch of wild and crazy sober students. And they were calling me out to go sledding at midnight with this sober group of students. And I couldn't believe it. And it just literally enveloped me in this whole new network of people who were trying to get sober.
I think finding more spaces and creating more opportunities for it to be accessible for people like me to be able to feel welcomed is huge. It's specifically saying it's okay to come even if you don't plan on drinking. Allows for someone like me to feel seen.
Living at the collegiate recovery house here at UVA, it's given me a community of friends that are on the same path that I'm on. My two roommates that I live with here, I love them very much. They're a safe place where I don't have to worry about roommates that drink or party. We always get excited when new people show up because, the bigger we are, the stronger we are. We support each other with wherever we're at in recovery.
Substance use exists on every college campus. The more enlightened ones support students who are actively engaged in addressing their substance use and are in recovery. Now there are 150 collegiate recovery programs across the country.
I started getting engaged in trying to help other college students who needed to get sober and got into student leadership there. And then this really crazy thing happened. I told a little bit of my story And somebody was like, you should apply to be on the lawn. So I went from my first year as an alcoholic, hating life, and being asked to leave UVA to a place where I got to live on the lawn, which I just still can't believe. Well, there's this saying in the 12-step program that I belong to, we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. I've been sober, which incredibly, one day at a time, has been 24 years. I've seen how each one of those humiliating experiences, each one of those things that I originally absolutely detested and did not want to talk about, actually helped someone else because someone else went through it. The thing that's amazing is that there is such hope. And so I think the message is just that when you're ready, there is hope.